The bitter wind of Arcturus 7 cut through Elliot Harlow's thermal coat as if it were made of tissue. 3 suns might hang in the sky during daylight hours, but they did little to warm this unforgiving colony world during its 18-hour nights. He trudged through knee-deep snow toward the power station, his breath crystallizing before his face like tiny shooting stars. Just 6 more months, he muttered to himself. 6 more months of maintaining the electrical grid on this frozen rock before his contract ended, and he could return to the warmer inner colonies. As Arcturus 7's lead electrical engineer, he commanded respect but little warmth from the colonists, a community built on resource extraction, military contracts, and deep suspicion of outsiders. The power station loomed ahead, its fusion core pulsing with an artificial heartbeat that kept the colony alive. As he approached the service entrance, a movement near the external heating vents caught his eye. Someone, was huddled against the warm metal, nearly buried in snow. Elliot approached cautiously. The colony had strict rules about vagrancy, doubly so for non-humans. What he found made his heart stutter. A Trelaxian woman, her skin a pale lavender beneath the frost, cradling a small child who appeared dangerously still. "Please," the woman whispered, her translator device crackling with static. "Help, daughter, food, warmth." Her eyes, luminous and silver-flecked like all Trelaxians, held both terror and desperate hope. Arcturus 7 tolerated Trelaxians only as temporary laborers in the crystal mines. A female with a child, outside the labor compounds, would find no mercy from colonial security. Elliot glanced around. The security cameras rotated away. In that moment, he made a decision that would alter the course of his carefully planned life. "Can you walk?" he asked, already shrugging off his thermal coat to wrap around the child. The little girl's breathing was shallow, her normally bright skin dull and mottled. The woman nodded, rising shakily. "I am Vila, daughter is Mila." "Elliot, follow me exactly, stay in my footprints." He cradled the child against his chest, feeling her unnatural heat even through the coat. Fever, not a good sign for a species that naturally ran cooler than humans. They skirted the power station, using the steam vents for cover. Elliot inputted his access code at a service tunnel, used primarily during the spring thaws when main roads flooded, and led them through the maintenance corridors beneath the colony. His apartment sat at the edge of the engineering district, a modest single-unit structure that rarely received visitors. Elliot ushered them inside, engaging the privacy shields that would prevent thermal scanning from outside, a luxury afforded to senior technical staff ostensibly to protect intellectual property. "Sit," he directed Vila toward the heating unit. She collapsed beside it, reaching for her daughter with trembling hands. Elliot moved quickly, gathering his emergency medical kit, food concentrates, and clean water. He'd taken a xenobiology course during his university days, not enough to make him a doctor, but perhaps enough to help. "How long since you've eaten?" he asked, preparing a nutrient solution suitable for Trelaxian physiology. "3 cycles," Vila answered, her voice steadying as warmth returned to her limbs. "Left mining compound after overseer." She looked away, her luminous skin rippling with a pattern that Elliot recognized as shame or distress. "You don't need to explain," he said softly, helping Mila drink the nutrient solution. The child's eyes fluttered open, silver-flecked like her mother's but with unusual golden rings around the pupils, beautiful and strange. As night deepened outside, Elliot found himself sitting beside these unexpected guests, breaking every colonial regulation he'd sworn to uphold. The child's fever began to recede as the nutrients and warmth did their work. Vila's gratitude manifested as gentle bioluminescent pulses beneath her skin, a Trelaxian expression Elliot had read about but never witnessed. "Why help us?" Vila asked finally, her translator converting the musical Trelaxian language into stilted standard. "Others turn away, throw stones, call security." Elliot considered the question. Why indeed? His career, his reputation, his future, all were now balanced on a knife edge. "Because it was the right thing to do," he answered simply. But even as he spoke, he felt something deeper stirring within him, a loneliness he'd carried across star systems, now illuminated by Vila's silver gaze. As Mila slept peacefully between them, Elliot made a silent promise to these strangers who were rapidly becoming something more. Whatever secrets had driven them here, whatever danger followed, he would not abandon them to the cold. 3 weeks passed in a careful dance of secrecy. Elliot maintained his routine at the power station while smuggling supplies back to his apartment. Mila's health improved gradually, her golden-ringed eyes brighter each day, though occasional fevers still racked her small body. Vila proved resourceful, transforming Elliot's sterile living space with elegant arrangements of the few possessions they had. She learned to operate his food synthesizer and studied human broadcasts to improve her standard language skills without relying on the translator. Tonight, Elliot returned to find her standing by the window, watching the aurora that rippled across Arcturus 7's night sky. "The lights remind me of home," she said softly, "of celebrations when the twin moons aligned." Elliot approached, careful to maintain the respectful distance that had characterized their interactions. "You never speak of home." "Because remembrance brings pain." Vila turned, her silver eyes catching the auroral light. "But perhaps it is time you knew why we fled." She unwrapped the scarf always wound around her forearms, revealing intricate luminescent patterns that pulsed with an inner light far more complex than the emotional displays he'd witnessed. "The luminescent bloodline," Elliot whispered, recognition dawning. His xenobiology professor had lectured about the royal Trelaxian dynasty, whose bodies contained rare bioluminescent compounds that could not be replicated. "I was handmaiden to the last prime illuminator," Vila explained. "When the revolution came, the royal family was executed. I escaped with Mila, but not before." She hesitated. "Not before the prime illuminator transferred her essence to me through blood bonding." "You're the last carrier of the royal bloodline," Elliot realized, understanding crashing over him. "Yes, and Mila," Vila glanced toward the sleeping child. "Her illness is not illness at all, but emergence, the royal patterns developing within her." Elliot sat heavily on the edge of his chair. "There are those who would kill for this information." "And those who would kill us for possessing it," Vila confirmed. "Yet you have shown nothing but kindness." She approached, kneeling before him. "Why, Elliot, truly?" The question hung between them, charged with unspoken possibility. Elliot reached out, tracing the luminescent patterns on her arm with gentle fingers. "Because in a cold world we all seek warmth," he answered. Vila's skin brightened at his touch, patterns shifting in what he now recognized as pleasure. She leaned forward, her forehead touching his in the Trelaxian gesture of deep trust. "Your warmth has saved us," she whispered. Their first kiss was tentative, an exploration of different physiologies and shared desire. Her lips were cooler than a human's, with a faint sweetness like mountain berries. As they parted, her luminescence had spread, bathing them both in gentle blue light. "I have wanted this," Vila confessed, "but feared you would find me too alien." Elliot cradled her face. "I find you beautiful," he said simply. "Alien, yes, but no less worthy of love for it." That night, they shared his bed for the first time, discovering each other's bodies with tender curiosity. Vila's luminescence responded to pleasure in cascading waves that transformed his darkened bedroom into a private constellation. Their joining transcended physical differences, becoming a communion of souls who had found improbable connection across the stars. Afterward, cradled against Elliot's warmth, Vila traced patterns on his chest. "On Trelaxia, we believe that souls recognize each other across lifetimes. Perhaps we have found each other before." "Perhaps we will find each other again," Elliot murmured, kissing her luminescent shoulder. Neither noticed Mila watching from the doorway, her small body briefly pulsing with new patterns that mirrored her mother's, the royal inheritance awakening within her. Outside, snow began to fall again as a security patrol passed by Elliot's apartment. The officer paused, thinking he saw an unusual blue light through the privacy shields, before continuing on his rounds. "Harlow, a word," Supervisor Brandt's voice echoed across the power station floor. Elliot set down his diagnostic tools, apprehension crawling up his spine. Brandt was a colony veteran, his weather-beaten face permanently fixed in a scowl. "You've been requisitioning extra supplies, medical grade, care to explain?" "Personal research project," Elliot replied smoothly. "Testing theories on cold weather electrical conductivity." Brandt's eyes narrowed, and the pediatric nutrient supplements. Elliot's heart stuttered. "Specialized compounds, I can show you the formulas." "See that you do," Brandt leaned closer. "There are rumors, Harlow, whispers about lights in your apartment, non-human visitors." "Rumors are the colony's favorite entertainment," Elliot deflected. "Will that be all?" As he returned to work, a message flashed on his comm unit from his neighbor, Tomas. Security scanned our block twice today. Something you should know. Elliot's fingers trembled as he shut down his station. He needed to warn Vila. At home, he found her bathing Mila, whose skin now pulsed with increasingly complex patterns. The child's fever had returned, more intense than before. "It's accelerating," Vila explained, her voice tight with worry. "The emergence should take years, but something's causing it to progress rapidly." "Could it be the planet's radiation?" Elliot suggested, examining Mila's forehead with a medical scanner. "Perhaps, or perhaps she senses danger." Vila looked up, fear evident in her eyes. "Trelaxian children can develop faster in threatening environments." Elliot knelt beside them. "My supervisor is suspicious. Security has increased patrols." Vila clutched Mila closer. "Then we must leave." "No," Elliot said firmly. "Winter storms have closed the spaceport. No ships for another month." He took her hand, feeling the coolness of her skin. "We'll find another way." That night, their lovemaking carried a desperate edge, each touch a promise, each kiss a silent vow. Vila's luminescence flared brighter than ever, making Elliot glad for the privacy shields. "If they take you from me," she whispered afterward, her body draped across his, "I will not survive it." "No one will take you," Elliot promised, stroking her hair. "Either of you." But promises, he knew, were easier made than kept. The next morning, Elliot arrived at work to find his access restricted. Brant stood waiting, flanked by 2 security officers. "Your energy usage patterns are inconsistent with a single occupant," Brant stated flatly. "Your apartment is being inspected as we speak." Elliot's blood turned to ice. "You have no right." "Colonial Security Act, Section 7, Brant interrupted. "Any suspected harboring of undocumented non-humans constitutes a security breach." Elliot didn't wait to hear more. He shoved past them, running toward the maintenance tunnels. Back at the apartment complex, he saw security vehicles already parked outside. Racing through the service corridors, he prayed he wasn't too late. His apartment door stood open, officers methodically searching each room. But of Vila and Mila, there was no sign, only a single luminescent handprint on the bathroom mirror, invisible to human eyes without special equipment, but clear as day to Elliot. Their emergency signal. They had escaped into the tunnels beneath the colony. Now he just had to find them before security did, or before the deadly cold of Arcturus 7 claimed them instead. The maintenance tunnels beneath Arcturus 7 formed a labyrinthine network, their narrow passages channeling heat from the power station throughout the colony. Elliot moved swiftly, his knowledge of the electrical grid guiding him through intersections where other engineers would become hopelessly lost. "Vila," he called softly at each junction, listening for any response. 6 hours into his search, his comm unit vibrated. A message from Dr. Harrington, the colony physician who had quietly supplied him with medical information about Trelaxian physiology. "They're tracking you through the grid. Get to level 3, section 42. I'll meet you. Delete this message." Elliot hesitated. Harrington was his sole ally, but trusting anyone now carried immeasurable risk. Still, he had no choice. Level 3 housed the secondary power couplings, its ambient temperature significantly higher than the upper tunnels. As Elliot emerged into the junction, Harrington materialized from the shadows, his normally crisp medical uniform disheveled. "Your friends are safe for now," the doctor said without preamble. "The child's biosignature led me to them this way." They descended further, passing through sections Elliot had never explored. Finally, Harrington stopped before an unmarked door, entered a complex code, and revealed a small chamber outfitted as a makeshift medical bay. Vila sat beside a gurney where Mila lay unconscious, the child's skin pulsing with intense patterns that illuminated the entire room. "Elliot," Vila rushed into his arms, her body trembling. "Mila's emergence has reached critical stage. She cannot be moved." Harrington checked the monitoring equipment. "Her cellular transformation is remarkable. In 30 years studying xenobiology, I've never seen anything like it." "You knew they were Trelaxian royalty," Elliot realized, watching the doctor's practiced movements. "I suspected," Harrington admitted. "I served on Trelaxia before the revolution, treated the royal family. Those patterns are unmistakable." A sound at the door silenced them all. Harrington moved quickly, drawing a pulse weapon as the lock began to override. The door slid open to reveal not colonial security, but a single Trelaxian male, his tall form wrapped in stealth gear, skin patterns subdued to near invisibility. "Illuminator Vila," he said, bowing deeply in the royal Trelaxian manner. "I am Krell, Sentinel of the Restoration. We have searched for you across 17 systems." Vila pushed Elliot behind her protectively. "The royal line ended. I am no Illuminator." "The blood bond transferred legitimacy to you," Krell insisted. "The coalition government requires your return." "To execute us properly this time?" Vila's voice hardened. "To heal our world," Krell countered. "The revolution failed. The military junta that followed, worse still. The people cry out for stability, for the light of the true bloodline." Before Vila could respond, alarms blared throughout the tunnel system. Colonial security had discovered their location. "We're surrounded," Harrington announced, checking security feeds on his comm unit. "Brandt has deployed the full tactical team." Elliot looked from Vila to Mila, then to Krell. A desperate plan formed in his mind. "Do you have a ship?" he asked the Trelaxian sentinel. "Hidden beyond the northern ridge," Krell confirmed. "Then we have one chance," Elliot decided. "But first, I need to speak with someone who owes me a favor." Colonial Administrator Thorne was not accustomed to being awakened in the middle of the night, especially by a subordinate wanted for harboring illegal aliens. Yet here stood Elliot Harlow on her view screen, calm despite the security forces surrounding the tunnel entrance. "I've designed and maintained your power grid for 3 years," Elliot stated without preamble. "Without my expertise, this colony would freeze within days." Thorne's expression remained impassive. "Are you threatening to sabotage essential systems, Engineer Harlow?" "I'm offering a diplomatic solution that benefits everyone." Elliot gestured to Krell, who stepped into view. "This is the representative of Trelaxia's new coalition government. They seek peaceful relations and the return of their legitimate royal bloodline." "The Trelaxians are Civil War refugees," Thorne countered. "Their internal politics are not our concern." "But interstellar trade agreements are," Krell interjected smoothly. "Trelaxia controls 70% of the quantum crystal mines in this sector. The coalition government is prepared to offer Arcturus 7 exclusive mining rights if their Illuminator and her daughter are granted safe passage." Thorne's eyebrow raised slightly, the closest she came to showing surprise. "And what does Engineer Harlow receive in this arrangement?" "I go with them," Elliot said simply. "My contract here ends, and I begin a new one as technical liaison between Arcturus 7 and Trelaxia." 4 hours of tense negotiation followed, conducted via secure channels while security forces maintained their position. Finally, as the first of Arcturus 7's 3 suns crested the horizon, an agreement was reached. The small procession moved through the colony center toward the landing pad where Krell's ship waited. Colonists gathered to watch, murmuring as they glimpsed Vila and Mila, the first Trelaxians many had seen outside the mines. Mila, recovered from her emergence, walked proudly between her mother and Elliot, her royal patterns now fully visible and unmistakable. Where fear or hatred might have been expected from the crowd, a curious silence fell instead, followed by scattered applause from the younger colonists. At the ship's ramp, Administrator Thorne met them for the formal exchange of documents. "You're either the colony's greatest fool or its wisest diplomat," she told Elliot quietly. "History will decide which." "History is written by those willing to take risks," he replied, signing the final agreement that would establish Arcturus 7 as the first human colony with a direct trade partnership to the Trelaxian homeworld. Aboard the ship, as Arcturus 7 receded beneath them, Vila performed the Trelaxian bonding ceremony in the ship's central chamber. With Krell and the crew as witnesses, she pressed her luminescent forearm against Elliot's, transferring a small pattern to his skin, one that would grow and develop over time, marking him as family. "On Trelaxia, you will not be the only human," she told him as Mila nestled between them. "But you will be the first human bonded to the royal bloodline." "I didn't fall in love with a royal," Elliot said, touching the new pattern on his arm with wonder. "I fell in love with a woman who was brave enough to seek warmth in a cold world." 6 months later, a delegation from Arcturus 7 arrived on Trelaxia for the official coronation of Illuminator Vila. They found a transformed world where the royal palace now housed a democratic council chamber, with the illuminator serving as constitutional monarch and symbol of cultural continuity. Most surprising to the delegates was the sight of human children playing alongside Trelaxian youngsters in the palace gardens, their laughter bridging ancient barriers of species and culture. In their private quarters, Elliot adjusted the environmental controls to the compromised temperature that suited them both. Not as warm as he preferred, not as cool as Vila found comfortable, but perfectly calibrated for their shared life. Mila asked again about a sibling today, Vila mentioned, her luminescence revealing her amusement. The genetic specialists believe it might be possible. Elliot pulled her close, his fingers tracing the royal patterns that no longer needed to be hidden. A child of two worlds, he mused, like the colony we're building on the southern continent. New Arcturus, Vila nodded. The first place where humans and Trelaxians will live as equals from its founding. Outside their window, the twin moons of Trelaxia aligned, bathing the landscape in silver light. Across the stars, on a frigid colony world, the power grid Elliot had designed continued to provide warmth through the endless night, a distant echo of the warmth that had brought two unlikely souls together. We should begin there, Elliot suggested. Build our home in New Arcturus between our worlds. Home is not a place, Vila replied, pressing her forehead to his in the Trelaxian gesture of deepest affection. Home is where warmth lives even among the stars. As they sealed this promise with a kiss, Mila's laughter echoed from the garden below, a sound of pure joy that needed no translation across the boundaries of species, a beacon of hope for worlds that had yet to learn that the greatest warmth came not from suns or power stations, but from the courage to open one's heart to the unknown.